Good afternoon, I'm Milton Walker with the Midday News. Special welcome if you're watching on onespotmedia.com. A reminder as well that you can download our One Spot Media app in the Google Play Store or the App Store. That's the number 1, followed by the word Spot and Media. The gunman who was shot and injured by a police inspector during an attack at her home in Morris Meadows, Portmore, St. Catherine, has died. He is said to be from Central Village and has been identified only by the alias Saltfish. The police are searching for 2 of the men involved in the attack. The police inspector and her 2 children, one of whom is a district constable and the other a student, were shot and injured. Their injuries are not considered life-threatening. The attack is believed to be a reprisal for Tuesday's fatal shooting of a wanted man, 23-year-old Raheem Shantilope, in Naggohead, Portmore. The injured police inspector's husband was part of the police team involved in that fatal shooting. Head of the Jamaica Constabulary Communications Unit, Superintendent Stephanie Lindsay, said the police officers in 4 parishes have been placed on alert based on recent fatal shootings. A man who is said to be a top-tier member of the G-City gang in Salt Spring, St. James, was shot dead Tuesday afternoon during a reported confrontation with the police. 22-year-old Daniel Whitaker, otherwise called Dan Dan, was killed about 3:13 Bottom Melbourne, Salt Spring. The police were conducting an operation when gunmen fired at them. They fired back and Mr. Whitaker was killed. The police say they took a loaded gun from his body. They say he was wanted for questioning in relation to several murders in St. James. There's been another double killing in Clarendon. Patrick Johnson, better known as Cole Jack, and Gregory Williams, both of Prospect in Morgan's Pass, were fatally shot in their community Tuesday night. Another man was shot and injured during the incident. Police say the men were standing along a roadway in the community about 11:15 when a lone gunman approached and shot them multiple times. The injured man is in stable condition. Amidst growing cases of sexual exploitation among children, among several issues, a campaign has been launched to increase Jamaica's awareness about the problem of human trafficking. Speaking at Tuesday's launch, Director of the Child Development Agency, Audrey Budai, noted the CDA has been working with the Counter-Terrorism and Organised Crime Task Force, CTOC, to fight the issue in Jamaica.
Where young girls are taken from one part of Jamaica, one parish of Jamaica, to another parish of Jamaica, in a market-like situation, like you're selling goods, where people line up and come and choose who they want from time to time.
But she notes that recent figures point to an increasing number of children being employed and exploited internationally.
One such study conducted by Dr. Leith Dunn on behalf of the International Labour Organization, International Program on the Elimination of Child Labour, revealed that girls as young as 10 and 11 years old are involved in the sex trade and are being solicited by men from all social classes in the society.
The anti-human trafficking campaign was spearheaded by McKay Security Company. It will see popular local artists and performers producing music to help bring attention to the dangers of sexual and other forms of exploitation. A man is dead and another hospitalized following a motor vehicle collision along the Saltmarsh Main Road in Trelawney about 12:30 this morning. Police say it appears Carville McDonald fell asleep while driving his Toyota motor car from Montego Bay towards Trelawney. The car ended up across the other lane right into the path of another Toyota motor car, which was heading in the opposite direction. Carville McDonald was a tour operator at Choco Cove. He lived in Jericho, Hanover. Over 200 persons have been recruited to the Jamaica Defence Force, JDF, through the Jamaica National Service Corps. Prime Minister Andrew Holness gave an update in the lower house yesterday.
The 232 privates and 2 potential officers completed 13 weeks of intense training. Their training challenged them mentally and physically, and throughout these young men demonstrated real strength of character. This first phase of their training program covered 13 weeks, which represents phase 1 of 5 phases of a year-long training program.
Meanwhile, a number of parliamentarians urged the government to pump more resources into programs for unattached youths between ages 18 and 24. Stakeholders say programs for unattached youth will help them avoid a life of crime.
How long are we going to tarry? How long are we going to evade the real reconstruction of the Jamaican society? We find resources for things that we really want to do. And I asked the Prime Minister if he has the resolve to really double and treble the allocation this year so that we can, in fact, make a dent in the criminal incidents of our people.
I have the resolve, Mr. Speaker, and we will find the economically frugal and wise way to do it.
A motorcyclist is dead and another in serious condition after the two collided head-on along the Crawford Main Road in St. Elizabeth about 10:35 Monday night. The deceased has been identified as 23-year-old Romain Hewson of Sandy Ground in St. Elizabeth. Mr. Hewson and the injured motorcyclist were traveling in opposite directions when they collided. Mr. Hewson was pronounced dead at hospital and the other driver admitted to the intensive care unit. The police say Mr. Hewson was operating his motorcycle without lights and it was neither licensed or insured. Amidst plans to enact the Public Health Act to amend the Public Health Act to severely punish parents who do not get their children vaccinated, a pediatrician is this afternoon re-emphasizing the importance of vaccination. Under the amended law, parents or guardians could face a $1 million fine or prison time for failing to vaccinate their children. Speaking on TVJ's Smile Jamaica this morning, pediatrician Dr. Anona Griffith noted that the lack of education about vaccinations is often the reason some parents fail to immunize their children.
Once an individual is vaccinated, your body boosts or produces an immune response. And that immune response can be measured clinically and in the lab, right? Usually vaccines are given in more than one dose. It's not usually a single dose vaccine, it's usually multiple doses. And over time, the body's immunity or the level of immunity that is produced in the body gets to a certain level at which you're best protected.
In response to increasing complaints about tourist harassment, the Redevelopment Committee has put trainee tour guides in the resort town. The details from TVJ's O'Shane Masters.
Stable employment for these 10 residents of Falmouth and Trelawney. They've been awarded certificates after completing 2 weeks of tour guide training initiated by the tourism product development company TPDCO. The training comes against the background of an admission from chairman of the Falmouth Redevelopment Committee and a minister without portfolio for economic growth and job creation, Dr. Horace Chang, that Jamaica has an extremely high rate of tourist harassment. And that's believed to be the reason why at least 3 cruise ships have pulled out of calling on the port of Falmouth for the upcoming tourist season. Mayor of Falmouth, Colin Gator, had also blamed visitor harassment for causing 2 of Royal Caribbean ships and 1 from Celebrity Cruises to divert to other ports in the Caribbean. It's an issue Dr. Chang says must be addressed, but in a non-traditional way.
Bring me those who you call the hustlers from Falmouth. And I remember I didn't want anybody outside of Falmouth. It had to be those who lived in Falmouth and had a stake in Falmouth. And I think 8 or 9 people came to, and that's why I met people who came out of the city. I have the right names, but I met 2 young men. A team of them came up and we had a discussion and understand that quite frankly, they had made themselves quite knowledgeable of the city. They knew what the guests were about. And their interest was to provide a service to their arriving guests in Falmouth.
The trainees will be initially paid with money from the Tourism Enhancement Fund.
One of the team members will be like a head guide, and they will collect whatever fees are paid, and it will go to a central pool from which they'll be given additional funding. So in order to keep them going, we have to pay them a minimum, but out of the funds collected for a guide, we will of course get additional funding, and we expect after they settle in for a year or two to see little divest, it will be managed and organized.
It's a great feeling to see that a lot of people recognize that we are the true and living people in the street that been here from day one, that know how the street operates. So in order for us to be a role model, they have to train us properly. We have to go through the procedure by the training and stuff. Now we get the approval that we need to be in the street to make us a better person.
Meanwhile, Dr. Chang says a contract was signed on Monday for further dredging to expand the Falmouth port.
So what we're going to do is to expand the berth itself to accommodate 2 oasis tranships at the same time. So you could end up if 2 of the oasis tranships come, you're talking 10,000 guests arriving at Falmouth. So a lot of things have to change to accommodate them.
O'Shane Masters, TVJ News.
Meanwhile, the Tourism Ministry is reporting growth in the sector. Speaking on TVJ Smile Jamaica this morning, Permanent Secretary Jennifer Griffith said from January to September, tourism arrivals increased by 6.9%. She said the increase is partly the result of tourists visiting from new overseas markets, which the ministry will be capitalizing on. The Permanent Secretary adds that the ministry is working to further increase tourist arrival figures by adding new developments in Montego Bay, St. James.
On Sunday night, we had the official opening of the Jewel Grand. On Monday night, opening of Breathless. That's a new property out in Freeport area. And in the day Monday, we opened Zoltry, which is Zoltry, which is a smaller property, 49 rooms upgraded. Last night, we cut ribbon for the new attraction, an addition to Chucker property in Good Hope, and this is now a new waterfall.
Tourism Minister Edmund Bartlett is lauding Jamaicans for their investment in the sector. He says for some time there have been too many foreign investors with Jamaicans taking a back seat. The minister was speaking at the opening of Jewel Grand Montego Bay Resort and Spa recently.
The way in which the capital market was operating, and in fact the way in which investment flows were moving into the tourism space. Now we run the risk of having a very disproportionate level of investment, of foreign investment, to local investment.
Time now for a look at what's coming up in this evening's health report.
And today,
we look at good personal hygiene, in particular proper hand washing.
I guess the tendency would be to say the children, just because they're not rigid about how they do their things. But again, though, we're finding as we promote that adults do have some of the similar behaviors. But if I had to hazard a guess, I would say more the children, just because of their the fact that they are not so structured and they don't necessarily follow in terms of what it is that they're to do, and you know, they just play.
That's the health report this evening in Primetime News. And now for today's healthy living tip. You wash your hands before, during and after preparing food, before eating food, before and after treating a cut or wound, after using the toilet, after changing diapers or cleaning up a child who has used the toilet, after blowing your nose, coughing or sneezing, after handling pet food or pet treats, and after touching garbage.
In news overseas, former Thai Prime Minister Yingluck Shinawatra, who fled the country last month, has been found guilty of dereliction of duty over a controversial rice subsidy scheme. She has been sentenced to 5 years in prison in absentia. Yingluck failed to appear in court on August 25 as hundreds of her supporters waited outside Thailand's Supreme Court for the scheduled verdict. At the time, the highly placed source in the Yingluck's Pheu Thai party said she had fled Thailand just before the hearing and was safe and sound in Dubai. A warrant was issued for her arrest. Over in sports, defending World 2020 champions West Indies women began their bid for a direct qualification to the ICC's Women's World Cup 2021 when they host Sri Lanka women for a 3-match one-day International Series and 3 2020 internationals in October. The 3 ODIs to be contested on October 11, 13 and 15 at the Brian Lara Cricket Academy in Trinidad will form part of the new round of matches in the ICC's Women's Championships. The championship will be contested between the leading 8 women's teams in the world, the West Indies and the Sri Lankans, along with Australia, recently crowned world champions in England, India, New Zealand, Pakistan and South Africa from now until March 2020. The top 3 ranked teams and the host nation, New Zealand, automatically qualify for the ICC Women's World Cup in 2021. The remaining 4 teams will have a second chance to qualify through the ICC's Women's World Cup 2021 qualifier. The 3 T20s on October 19, 21 and 22 at Coolidge Cricket Ground in Antigua will also be critical for both sides as they also look to prepare themselves for the ICC Women's World 2020 tournament to be staged in November next year in the Caribbean. And that's Midday News. I'm Milton Walker. Join us at 7 for Primetime News. On behalf of the news, sports and production teams, good afternoon.